Welcome back to my channel, everybody. If you don't know who I am, my name is Lindsay, and I am the review queen. However, I'm not going to review anything today. Today, I'm going to do a Q&A because today marks the 20 years I have lived in Sweden now. I moved here 20 years ago. So, I am going to answer all these questions here. And yes, my handwriting looks like from another ancient civilization. So let's get started. Question 1. When did you move to Sweden? I moved to Sweden on June 6, 2006. Or as we say it in Swedish, 2006 2006. Or saying it as 6 juni 2006. Or 060606 or 666. So, as I said in Swedish, if you would just use the dates like 060606, it would be 666. Yes, that's when I moved here. The poor Swedes. Question 2. Why did you move to Sweden? Plain and simple, my husband, even though we weren't married at the time. So if you're new to my channel, my husband and I were together for 21 years before we got married in August of 2024. Or was it 2024. We've been together since May of 2003. And so by the time I moved to Sweden, which was in 2006, we had already been together for like 3 years. So yes. But he wasn't my husband then. He was just my formerly long-term boyfriend. And then when we moved in together, we were called sambos, which is basically cohabiting partners and stuff. And if I recall correctly, my brother mentioned to me one time that sambo is a bad word in another language, but I have no idea. So when I say sambos, I don't mean that. I mean, in Swedish, we are cohabiting partners. So yeah. Question 3. Where in Sweden did you move to when you moved to Sweden? I initially lived in Västra Götaland, which is the province that Gothenburg is in. And I lived in a very, very rural community called Seglora. In fact, most people don't know Seglora in Sweden, but they know the towns that Seglora is near, like Viskafors and Kinna. So we lived there, and then the biggest town or city near that was Borås. And I lived there for like the first 13 years that I lived in Sweden. So yeah. Question 4. You said you moved in Sweden. Where to? Yeah, so I did move to another place in Sweden. In 2019, we moved to Jönköping County, which is, Jönköping County. And we moved to a very small community, though it was bigger than Seglora. This place has like a population. I don't know the exact figure off the top of my head, but I do know this because I looked it up. If you ever watch Salem's Lot and you see the population they have on that sign, I don't know about the reboot, and I don't know the original one from the 1970s, but I know the 2005 version. They mentioned the population of Salem's Lot or Jerusalem's Lot. And put it this way, Breedereed has less people here than they do in Jerusalem's Lot. So I know the figure is about 1,000. There's 1,000 people that live in Breedereed, but I don't know the exact figure. All I remember is that it's less than what the population is in the fictional town of Jerusalem's Lot. So yeah. And I've been here for like, I think 7 years now. Yeah. So if I lived in Västergötland for 13 years and I lived in Jönköping for 7, it makes 20. So yeah, that heard noise. Let's see here. Question 5. Did you visit Sweden before moving here? Yeah, I did. The first time I visited Sweden was for Christmas of 2003. So by this point, I think my husband and I have been together for like, as boyfriend and girlfriend, for like 7 months. I don't know. Is that right? Is it July, August, no? Yeah, 7 months by that point. Yes, I count on my fingers. But yeah, I first came here for Christmas time in December of 2003. I actually stayed for a month, and I was able to do that because at the time I was working at the University of Maryland in dining services as a student employee, so we had the winter off. So the whole entire winter break, I was in Sweden, being with my boyfriend, who would become my husband. And then another time I visited Sweden was for the summer of 2004. Although I thought I came here for Easter in 2004. No, I didn't come here in Easter in 2004. I think it was 2005 that I came for Easter. But yeah, so I came to Sweden at least 3, 4 times before finally moving here. And at the end of my visit in 2005, when I visited for the summer of 2005, that's when my husband asked me, do you want to move here to Sweden? And I said yes without hesitating. So, yeah. 6, did you know much of Sweden prior to moving there? I did learn a lot when I was visited here, but also I had learned a bit about Sweden, ironically enough, from American Girl. Because at the time they had a girl named Kirsten, who immigrated from Sweden to live in the Midwest of the United States. You know, she was considered to be a pioneer girl. And that was common back in that time where a lot of Swedes did immigrate from Sweden to go to the U.S. And I think it was the 1840s also. And because like it was kind of hard to farm here at the time, and it was just hard to make money and all this other stuff. So they came to the U.S. And I think it was around the same time that the Irish came to the U.S. too. So, yeah. 7. What is SFI? SFI is Swedish for immigrants, or as they say in Swedish, Svenska för invandrare, which is funny because invandrare looks like invaders. And it's basically helps immigrants learn how to speak Swedish because you really need to know how to speak Swedish if you want to work here. So yeah, a lot of the industries require you to speak almost nearly fluent Swedish. So yeah. 8, you said in a vid last year, and of course I have the vid at the end, this vid, so you guys can look at it, that you have been to SFI before. Why did you leave initially? So I was in SFI initially in 2007. And so it was like a year after I moved to Sweden. And I was there for like September, October, November, December, 4 months. 4 months, although technically maybe 3 months. And I had left because I was sick a lot that year. I had bronchitis. I was having a lot of nausea to the point where I thought I was pregnant when I wasn't. I did go to the doctors and they did check out my stomach only to find nothing going on, but I didn't know back then that I had bad anxiety. So yeah, I didn't realize that my stomach aches were being caused by my anxiety, because that has returned a little bit this time around too, but not to the point where it was in 2007. Since I feel like I missed too much. And of course, back then we didn't have anything to go online like we do now. We don't have any resource. We didn't have any sources to study online for some strange reason. Like we were at a time where you had to have a dictionary with you, a book a dictionary book with you, because at the time there was no Google Translate or anything like that. You weren't able to go the internet on your phone much in 2007 and stuff. A lot of people still were on their computer, they were on the internet and stuff. So like, yeah, we didn't have that. So I wasn't able to keep up. And I missed, like, especially when I had bronchitis, I missed like 3 weeks of school, 3 weeks of SFI. And so I feel like I missed too much because, like, in the States, especially in college, and unless it's changed since then. I mean, obviously, it's probably changed a lot since you have online learning now and all this other stuff. But you didn't have this like 20 years ago. But like in the U.S. with colleges, at least in my experience, and keep in mind, I haven't been to college in like, let's see, I graduated from a 2 year with a 2 year degree in 2004. So I haven't been in college in like 22 years now. Just keep that in mind when I say this. So like back then, if you missed a lot of school at college, they're like, you missed too much. I don't think you can catch up now. I think it's a good idea for you to drop out. And I kind of applied that to that same mentality here in Sweden. The thing is, they wouldn't have done that. They wouldn't have told me to go. They would have like put me in a different class until I caught up, and then maybe switch me back to the initial class or whatever. But I felt like I missed too much of that. I felt like I had to leave. And then my next thought was, okay, well, maybe I'll just learn Swedish off the streets. Learn Swedish from watching TV shows or listening to Swedish music or Swedish radio. I did listen to a lot of Swedish radio. I will say that. And also, picking it up from other people, learning through the kids. That was a big one. But the problem is, learning through the kids is not fast enough because right now my oldest is about to graduate from grade 6, and that's elementary school or primary school. And that's not the type of Swedish they want in the workplace. They want you to be nearly fluent. And even though you speak fluent Swedish when you are in school, I mean, my son is fluent in Swedish, trust me. It's not at the level they want you to have it in the workplace in Sweden. So you do need SFI, especially if you're someone who needs an academic setting. And I need an academic setting to learn something much quicker than picking it up from the streets. Because I had like 19 years to pick it off the streets, and it just wasn't enough. So and here's a funny story. My husband is the opposite. So my husband is fluent in both Swedish and English. And by the way, my husband is Swedish. And he's fluent in, like I said, he's fluent in English now, but he wasn't at the time that he went to school. He was actually struggling on how to speak English in school, to the point where the teacher told him at the time, I would never live in the States if I were you, because your English is that bad. And my husband's like, I'll show her or him. I don't know if this was a man or a woman. So my husband picked up a lot of Swedish off the streets, like I was going to do with Swedish. Or did I say pick up this? Yeah, he picked up English a lot off the streets. In other words, like, through TV and through listening to radio and music and trying to have conversations in English and stuff, to the point where he was fluent enough where he can correct me in my English, and I'm a native speaker of English. But yeah. So he could do that. I can't do that. I need an academic setting to do that, and I do it better slightly in an academic setting than trying to pick it off the streets. So yeah, that's why I left. Is because not because it was too hard or I didn't want to. It was that I was so sick to the point where I missed a lot, and I felt like I couldn't stay anymore. But I will say this, for anybody who's moving to Sweden or who is new to living here, do not leave SFI like I did. That was a dumb move. Because there's a waiting list, by the way, that you would have to go back on if you ever leave and want to come back again. And so if you miss a lot of SFI because you're sick a lot, or your kids are sick a lot or whatnot, they do have an option now. And I didn't know this at the time that I made the video last year, because I made the video I think in June or July, and I went a little bit dark there. I have no idea why I did that. Yeah. So like, if you have a kid that's very sick, or you're very sick a lot, or you're missing a lot because of work, you can do online classes. It's not just in-person learning anymore like it used to be. That's why that is what it used to be 20 years ago, and I will get to that in a bit. But yeah, just don't leave SFI. Try to stick it out, because SFI is it's like the mandatory years to go to SFI is like basically 3 years. And then once you are done with SFI, you can either learn more Swedish in another school, or you can pursue other things. Like, one big thing right now is they're looking for a lot of people to work in the elderly homes or be care nurses and stuff like that. They're called I'm gonna fucking botch this up. Undersköterska. I'm probably saying that so wrong. Basically, a nurse, you're a nurse, but you're not like in your side level where you're dealing with needles and stuff. You're basically caring for others, making sure they are taking care of themselves, helping them eat, just making sure they're taking their medicine. This can be like, you do home visits, or you can do work in an elderly care home. So it's that kind of nurse. So it's like I guess the closest thing I could say is a caretaker or a care nurse, I guess. But I cannot say nurse in Swedish for my life, and that might actually get me disqualified to actually learn to do that. But now I'm just joking about that. But anyway, so yeah, so you can continue other places after SFI once you learn a lot of Swedish, and stuff like that. So, and right now I'm in 2C. I was in 2B initially, and of course the intro class when I started in August, and I was there till November. Then I went to 2B, and I was in 2B until March of this year, and now I'm in 2C. So yeah, I'll get to that in a bit, because there's more I want to elaborate on, but I'll do that in another question. So, question 9. How is your time at SFI now, and how long have you gone there this time around? Okay. So my time at SFI is a lot better now. I understand a lot more than what I hear now than I did, say, nearly 20 years ago. Because like next year will be 20 years since I went to SFI the first time around. Because like when I first was learning Swedish at SFI in 2007, I didn't understand what I was hearing much. I didn't really talk well, although I feel like I still don't talk well, but I'm talking more now than I was in 2007. It's a little easy, because I like a lot of things that we're learning now, especially in the first small book, is stuff that I have already learned. Although right now in the last chapter, I'm learning grammar that I didn't learn initially. And by the by, grammar is a bitch. But then again, it's also a bitch in English, so I think everybody can agree that grammar, regardless what language you speak, is a bitch. So, and oh yeah, I've been there, as I just said, I've been there since March of this year. Or no. I've been in the class I'm in now since March of this year. I've been there since August of last year. So September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. Almost 10 months now. And that's more than what I was initially in 2007. 10. What is the difference between SFI now and 2007? Well, I've mentioned some already, but like one big one is we didn't have online learning back then. So if I was sick and I wanted to catch up, I could go online right now and do online stuff. I'll be able to talk to the teacher on Teams and tell her stuff like, what did we learn? Can I continue to learn in the next chapter in my Mel book? And also, I can tell the teacher easily nowadays if I'm sick or running late and stuff compared to like 2007. Plus, the way they do things now, I think, is a lot better than it was in 2007. And again, keep in mind, this is almost 20 years now. For example, we didn't have levels or certain classes that we were put in. I can't tell you what class I was in when I left in 2007. I don't know if it was an A, B, C, D level. I don't know if it was level 1 or 2 or 3 because that did not exist back then. I had the same class initially for all 4 months at SFI initially in 2007. And I don't think that was an intro class because that was like 4 months. And like the intro class at SFI this time around lasts like 5 weeks. So I think they just figured, okay, we'll just start everybody at the same level and, whatever. I'm just having some coffee. So they have levels, and I was interested to learn some things because I do remember a classmate I had in my first time at SFI in 2007 who had a hard time reading and writing Swedish. Like, she didn't know how to spell her name. Didn't know how to spell her name in Swedish because she was from the Middle East. I think Arabic was her native language. And she just had trouble conveying what her name was in Arabic to Swedish. And so, like, when she had to put her name on paper, she had to, like, look at her name tag to know how to do that. And they found that a lot of people had problems like that. I'm not saying just from the Middle East. I'm just saying, like, even if you're from an English-speaking country or whatnot, if you never learned or you had trouble learning, they have this level now where they will literally help you with the alphabet. It's like a basic course of learning how to read and write and stuff. So yeah, they want you to learn how to read and write, but they're trying to like bring you up to everybody else. So you have that. I don't know if that's considered class level 1 or if that's a level on its own. But then you have level 1, which is very beginning, and you take a long time to learn things. You're a very slow learner, like I am at times. But you're in 1 if you don't learn fast. Level 2, which is what I'm on right now and have been on since I left the intro class in November, where you can learn both fast and slow. So, like, yes, I'm a fast learner if I know something. So, like, the reason why I did so well on 2B and stuff in the intro class is because everything that we were taught in that class this time around, I had already learned, especially the first time I went to SFI in 2007. And plus, I did a lot of Duolingo in Swedish before I went to SFI. So, like, for 3 months last year, prior to me going to SFI again, I was learning Swedish in Duolingo. So I knew a lot by the time I got to SFI in August. And everything that we learned in 2B in the intro class was stuff that I already learned. Now I'm getting to the point where I'm beginning to not know a lot of what I'm learning right now. So yes, I'm fast with stuff that I already learned, but then I start becoming slow with stuff that I don't know very well. So we'll see how that goes. So yes, I'm on 2C right now, or I'm on the second level right now. And then the third level, you usually learn things fast. You read a lot, you write a lot, and while I'd be good with that, it's the talking that keeps me back a little bit because I'm very strong with reading and writing Swedish, especially reading Swedish. Like I could finish a national proof or a national test, or it's similar to like a national test in the U.S., like CRTs or the SATs or something like that. I would say it's more like CRTs in the U.S. And the reading test is supposed to take at least 90 minutes or an hour and a half. It takes me like 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes to finish it. And I do very well when I do. While I'm very strong in writing in the sense that I write a lot and I don't need not calculator, but the phone to help me translate. Grammar kicks my ass like you wouldn't believe it. And so that's the biggest issue I have when it comes to writing Swedish is, and maybe even talking Swedish, is the grammar. Hearing, it used to suck initially in 2007, but I've gotten a lot stronger. So like, I probably like at a C level now with hearing Swedish. I understand most of what I hear, but then there's some things I don't understand when I hear it. But I'm not lost like I was when I first moved here, or when I first visited here. And so like for example, next week is a national proof or national test that we're taking at SFI that will determine if you go on to the next level, whether if it's going to, for if like in my case, whether I would go on to like another C course like 3C, or if I would go to a D course like 2D. I don't know if I'm that advanced enough to go to 3D yet, but like something like that. But I know I'm not taking that test, so I'm not taking it, which is about right because like I was in 2B for like 5 months before I took the national test. So I think it's just they're trying to help me bring my talking up just a little bit to like the C level and stuff. Because that's my weakest area. Like it was in 2007. Talking is just my weakest level. Yeah, and to be frank, and I think I mentioned this last time too, I don't feel like I'm a good conversationalist or a good talker to begin with. I even mess up English at times. And you know, I'm prone to repetition. I am prone to really mispronounce a lot of words I say, and then if I have trouble saying it, I either give up or I try to describe it and stuff like that. So yeah, that's related to my issues, which I won't get into because that's not today's video and stuff like that. So yeah. So they have all that now, you know, like level 1, level 2, level 3, and class A, B, C, D that they didn't have in 2007. And also, another thing that's different is back then, I think a lot of the focus was on getting you to understand what you were hearing in Swedish as well as having you talk well. So what happened was a lot of people got good at talking Swedish and understanding what they were hearing. But there was a problem that when a lot of people were hired in Swedish companies to work there, yes, they were able to communicate well in Swedish when it came to orally and understanding what they were hearing. But then they had trouble writing Swedish and reading Swedish. So SFI had focused, while they had focused on two very important things that you need to get a job in Sweden, they had kind of neglected to make sure that that these people that were being hired that were speaking well and listening well in Swedish, they neglected the fact that they didn't write or read well in Swedish. And you need that too in the companies. Because like a company wants you to be able, and it doesn't matter what industry it is, they want you to know how to speak, listen, read, and write well in Swedish. Have at least a fluent, nearly a fluent or a good knowledge of Swedish. And they just found that a lot of people couldn't do that reading and writing it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way, because like I am very good at reading and writing Swedish, but I'm not good at the very two things like that would definitely get me hired at a Swedish company, although they do make sure you can do all four. So like SFI now focuses to make sure like everybody knows all four disciplines of Swedish. They know how to speak well, they know how to hear well, they know how to write well, and they know how to I know I'm missing one, read well in Swedish. So it's no more about like only focusing on two of the four. They're trying to make sure someone knows all four disciplines real well. Like, and here they don't have like they do in the States, where if you're very good in some areas, and I'll give a quick example because actually it happened here. It doesn't normally happen, but my son initially, when he was in third grade, he was put in the same class as fifth graders just for English, because he was that advanced in English when he was in third grade. He was at a fifth grade level of English. Now, they don't do it that often anymore, but like in the States, if you're very advanced in something, of course they'll either have you go forward in a grade or have you go in a different class to learn, since you're very advanced in that class. And so I had asked my teacher in the other class, does SFI have a system where they'll put you in one class for reading and writing Swedish, but you're in a different class to learn how to hear and speak Swedish? Because like speaking Swedish is my weakest area out of all four disciplines. I know this. Hearing is average, and then reading is very strong, and then writing comes after that, even though I have issues with grammar still. And so they don't have it where, for example, I can't go to 3C for reading and writing Swedish while I say, for example, stay in 2C for like listening and speaking in Swedish. So they want you in one class for all disciplines, not just one or two or three. So they don't do that here. So yeah, that's what's different between the two now. The similarities. Google Translate gives really weird translations at times, and then if you think that's bad, even in the dictionary, a paper dictionary, and this was even an issue in 2007, a lot of things are outdated. They would be like, I would look for one word, I'm like, oh, and then I write it down, and the teacher's like, nay, fell, which is, nay is no, and fell is wrong in Swedish. And I'm like, men det säger I lexikon, which is basically, but it says that in the dictionary, and she's like, I forgot what outdated was, but she would tell me it was outdated. I'm like, why does no one update the terms? It's like this. If someone was learning English and they wanted to call someone a slut, they look in the dictionary and see the word strumpet. Strumpet is something they used during Shakespeare's time to call someone a slut. So that's what it's like at times. So yeah. Blah, 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 blah. 11, do you have Swedish citizenship? Yeah. I got naturalized in 2020 after living here for like, what was it at the time? Hold on. Okay, I moved here in 2006, so 6 years ago. So after living here for 14 years, I got naturalized, which I think they do in the States still. They naturalize someone after living there for 14 years, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah. Although, to be fair, they are beefing it up who can get citizenship here all of a sudden. Now it's not just how long you've lived here. They want to make sure that you can support yourself and you have a good knowledge of Swedish before they give you citizenship. Now, to be fair, I did not know that I would get the citizenship. It was just something that we were curious about to see if I could get. I expected to get rejected. They said it would take 14 months. You know how long they process my citizenship here in Sweden? Not 2 months, but 2 weeks. So yeah. But anyway. And yes, I do have dual citizenship between the US and Sweden. US because I'm from there and I was born there. Sweden because I got naturalized here. And yes, both kids do have dual citizenship between Sweden and the US because they were born, well, here in Sweden, that's another thing too. I know it would be a big deal in the US if you didn't get citizenship because you were born there. But I have found, especially after living in Sweden for a while and hearing how it is around the world, you don't get citizenship in other countries like Sweden automatically if you're born there. It depends where your parents are from. So, like, this would be birthright citizenship. We have that in the States, I guess, still. But like, if you had a kid in the States, it wouldn't matter where the parents are from. The kid would get U.S. citizenship because they were born there. But in Sweden, for example, my kids got Swedish citizenship not because they were born here, but because their father is from Sweden. And of course, they have U.S. citizenship because I'm from the U.S. What did I say before that? Yeah, they have U.S. citizenship because of me. So yeah. And as a result of being a citizen in Sweden, I also am a citizen in the EU because of that. So yeah. 12. Can you vote in elections in Sweden? Yes. Right now, I can vote in all 3 levels of government. In the local governments, like mostly, I'm going to butcher that word. See what I said earlier when I have trouble talking, even in my own language? Multiplicities? I don't know how to say that word. But like local, it'll be similar to like a mayor or something like that. So, I can vote on local. I can vote on quote unquote the state. For example, I don't know if provinces are really the same as states though. But I can vote on the state level here, or the province level and stuff. I think the state level is like Jönköping, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's more of a county than a province. Either way, I can vote on that level too. And then I can vote on the federal level. So I can vote for someone to be in the parliament. I can vote now in the EU elections. So, but before I had Swedish citizenship, I couldn't vote on the federal level or in the EU elections. I could only vote on the local and state level of their elections. It's kind of like how now in the States, the only thing I can vote for now in the States is on the federal level. I don't vote in the local and state elections anymore because I live here. So, yeah. And elections in Sweden all take place at the same time. They all take place once every 4 years in September. So this year we have an election in Sweden. So everybody, whether you are running on the local level or the state level or the federal level, they all run at the same time. There's no midterms or anything in Sweden. Also, by the by, there is no term limits. So people, if you're a politician in Sweden, you really, really need to impress your constituents. Otherwise, you're not going to get voted back again. So, yeah. I mean, and I know this a little bit because my husband was a politician on the local level. He made it into the local version of their parliament, but he didn't get voted back in the next election after that. So, and he has no interest in doing it right now, especially on the federal level. And also, in Sweden, you have 8 parties that are in parliament right now. Though there's other parties, but in order to get voted into parliament or to the government on all 3 levels, you need a 4% of the vote. Otherwise, you don't make it in. And also, depending on how much you're voted for, depends on how many seats that party gets in parliament. So right now, the Social Democrats has the most seats in the federal parliament and stuff, because that's the most popular party in Sweden. And then, depending on what it is, it just determines how many seats you get. And there's no, when you vote here in Sweden, you don't really vote for an individual per se. You vote mostly for the party to make it in. And then, for example, the Prime Minister of Sweden is not decided by the people per se. It is in a way, like they decide if their party gets voted in versus who of that party gets voted in. It's kind of is based off of who is leading the party at the time, and then if your party makes it into parliament, if your party gets the most votes, and you have to have 50% to get majority, and that's what decides you to lead. If you don't get that, like, even though the Social Democrats had the most votes last time, they didn't get 50% majority, so they couldn't lead the government. So then when a party doesn't get 50%, and this happened for the last few elections, the parties start forming alliances, and then whatever party of the alliance has the most votes, that party becomes the leading party. So like right now, even though the moderate party didn't get the most votes in the last election, they got the most votes in their alliance, and that's why they're leading the government now. That's why the leader of the moderate party is now the Prime Minister of Sweden. So that's how it works. It doesn't work by voting for an individual person. It works by how many people vote for that party, and then how many people within that party get voted for. That determines if they will be having a seat in parliament. And if it's a 50% majority, that party leads. If no party reaches that majority, the parties form an alliance. Then whoever has had the highest vote out of that alliance, they're the ones that get the power if the alliance gets picked to do it. So that's how it works here. So, yeah. 13. After all this time, what is the hardest to adapt to? The long hours of darkness during the wintertime. After all this time, I still have trouble adapting. Although I don't think it was as bad as this past winter, and I think the reason why it wasn't that bad, because, I will say I do have seasonal affective disorder. So like, if the winter isn't too rainy, like if there isn't a lot of rain, there needs to be a balance, because yes, snow is a pain in the ass to drive in, but like snow makes things beautiful too. But like if it's raining too much, which is what can happen in the mild winter here, it makes things very gloomy and depressing, and you still don't see the sun. I mean, even here in this part of Sweden, I call this part of Sweden light, because we at least get 6 hours of light during the wintertime, and we get 6 hours of darkness during the summertime. So we're about to go into the summer solstice soon, which is where you have light 24/7, especially up north where Kiruna is the most northern town in Sweden. The northern part of Sweden, that they get the 24/7 deal with light in summer and darkness in the winter. But here we at least get 6 hours of light in the winter and 6 hours of darkness in the summertime. But for like a mild winter when it's raining and you don't see the sun, oh yeah, that's gonna mess with you. And I don't want to say I'm still adapting to the language. I'm still learning because I'm not really a fast learner. Honestly enough. It's not that I'm a fast learner, but it takes my brain a long time to process information that it gets. And unfortunately, when there's a deadline, it sucks. So, yeah. 14. Have you gotten a job in Sweden? Ever worked there? Yeah, I'm in the process of actually getting hired right now. They're just doing some stuff with Arbetsförmedlingen, which is Swedish public employment agency. And so here's the thing: when you're newly unemployed or you're coming to Sweden and you don't have a job yet, I didn't do this because I'm an idiot, because I never did this in the States, because I never applied for unemployment in the States because I always had a job when I lived in the States. But I never thought about it because, first of all, when I moved here, I thought I would be working for my neighbor, and that fell through. Second of all, I was working at Starbucks at the time that I moved. I was working at Starbucks around the time that I moved to Sweden, and I thought, please let them have a Starbucks in Sweden that I can work to. Yeah, that didn't happen until, when they have their first Starbucks. I would say it was probably way after I moved here, so I couldn't be transferred to work there. And so I didn't think, and my husband never had it recommended to me and stuff to apply for this stuff. Because I just moved to Sweden. I did have a job. I no longer have a job now because that job does not exist in Sweden. I thought I was gonna do something for my neighbor's business. That fell through. But I didn't apply for the unemployment office per se. And so I think I did that a year later though, but that's a whole nother thing on its own. But I didn't think to apply for that, even though I did a year later, but it was just, I plead the fifth on that. I plead the Fifth Amendment, at least from the U.S. Constitution. But I would say that it's a lot better now than it was, say, 20 years ago when I first applied to it. It's a lot more resourceful now. And it's a lot more clear what you're supposed to do than it was, say, 20 years ago. But yeah, I'm in the process of being hired right now. I don't really want to mention the company. But I got it through being a part of a program through Arbetsförmedlingen, or the unemployment agency, where you are with a in Swedish they call it Resta Matcha, I think. And you do get paid to be in that program as long as you go to the meetings and do what you're supposed to do. And then they help you get a job. So like with my caseworker, they helped me clean up my CV a bit, make my CV Swedishized. They helped me draft a personal letter or a personal believe it, something like that. Personal letter about who you are and what you're interested in doing and stuff like that. And then, of course, you have to apply for jobs, and you do have a plan that you get from the unemployment agency about what to do. Like in my case, I had to look for between 6 to 15 jobs, at least, and then go to job fairs and go to things that the unemployment agency would send you and stuff. And sometimes, like in my case, an email came into my caseworker. He asked me if I wanted my CV sent. I said yes, and that's how I got work. And that's another thing. Like another way to get jobs in Sweden is to have connections, because that's how I was able to work the first time. I was working for the company that my husband worked at the time, and I was able to work as a temp during the summertime in 2007 and 2008. While the regular employees were going on vacation, I was working in their position temporarily and stuff while they had a vacation. And there are agencies in Sweden where their sole job is to provide temps for a company when someone is going on vacation, because Sweden has a mandatory 4 weeks of vacation. And then, of course, if someone's on sick leave or they're on parental leave or maternity leave, then a temp is sent to that person to work there for a bit. And then when that person comes back to their job, the temp is sent somewhere else. So there's that. And also, in my case, when you're registered through the employment agency, and you do get hired, they could actually give money to the company that's hiring you. So, as an incentive and stuff. So that's what happens as well. So yeah, I'll be working again soon. So that's great. I don't know. Since I still make videos on a weekly basis, I post them like once a week. I don't think the time when I put out videos is gonna really change much. And I'm kind of hoping that they'll let me, do reviews for that company and stuff like that, and maybe get paid extra as being free advertisement and all that. If they're paying me, I guess they're sponsoring the video, but something like that. So yay! Hopefully I start soon. Okay, last question. Tell us a bit about Sweden, especially stuff we not normally know of. I did cover a lot of things about healthcare and education last year, and again, I'm going to post the video where I talked about all this stuff in. But I will repeat some stuff. So one thing that's not known about healthcare in Sweden, yes, it's known that we have universal healthcare here. But what people don't know, especially in the States, because it seems to be a secret that both sides like to keep quiet, is there is a private sector. So if you don't want to be in a state-run healthcare system, you do have the option of going to a private state-run or a private sector of healthcare. It does cost a little bit more, but it's not to the point where it's going to make you bankrupt. So yeah, it is a little bit more, not expensive, but you do pay more in the private sector than you do in the state-run sector, but it's still not to the point where it's going to bankrupt you like it does in the States. I have my own stories, but I already talked about that in that other video. Another thing is here, they really love their candy, but they tend to go a week without eating any candy and snacks until the weekend. So, like, either Friday or Saturday is the day where everybody just indulges in candy and junk food, and then they behave themselves for the rest of the week. It's not something decided by the government, by the way. This is just something like people realize it's a lot better to do. They're like, they behave during the week, and then they use the weekend to celebrate by indulging and stuff like that. So it's not like where I'm from in the U.S., where it's like, if I want candy now, I'm gonna have it now, and I don't care what day of the week it is. So, and that's another thing. Despite them eating candy maybe once a week, although I don't think everybody does that. I think some people maybe put it off for a while, but there is so much candy when you're here. It's so overwhelming. I remember going here, visiting, being so overwhelmed by how much candy they had here. I didn't have candy for like a month or two when I came back to the States. That's how much it wore me out. Let's see. I don't know. I don't know really much. I think I said some things that are not known already from what I said in the other questions. So yeah. Well, y'all, that's today's video. If you like this video, smash the like button. If you subscribe, I'll be absolutely delighted, and I'll see you all later. Toodles.